Yet another tube and rail strike, called of course on the same day to cause maximum disruption next month. Well, I've got a very simple solution for that. You ban them. You ban train drivers from going on strike. You ban London Underground drivers from going on strike for a very good reason. They are both essential services. And you know what? We still effectively own these rail companies even though they were privatised years ago. No fewer than £42 billion has been ploughed into the rail companies since the pandemic by the taxpayer. 42 billion. It's staggering, it's eye-watering, and I had to double check twice that I got the figure right. Do you know how many hospitals that would pay for? 400. And the government, as we know, is still struggling to build the 40 it promised in its last manifesto. Only a few days ago, we had the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, warning the unions that he was going to bring in a minimum service bill to ensure doctors have to provide a minimum level of service on strike days. No, Mr. Secretary of State, you can go further. Rishi Sunak needs to get some muscle and some fibre. Look at Mrs. Thatcher. I was an enthusiastic supporter of her government. I voted for her government in all 3 general elections. She was the one who outlawed wildcat strikes. She also outlawed flying pickets. She took on the union barons and she won decisively. She even saw off Arthur Scargill, the miners' leader. I remember the miners brought down a Conservative government just a decade earlier. So Rishi Sunak, I saw him at a reception in Downing Street only a few weeks ago when he stunned the room by telling everyone he was a Thatcherite. Are you Prime Minister? If you are, get on with it. Ban these strikes in essential public services. So that means no more rail strikes, no more strikes on the London Underground, no more strikes by doctors and nurses. While we're at it, should we throw teachers into the mix too? Because why on earth should they be allowed to keep disrupting your kids' education? And to go back to where we started, by the way, the rail unions who are going on strike again, do you know what the average train driver and London Underground driver earns? More than £60,000 a year. Very nice too when you consider a nurse gets only £31,000 and they settled for 5%. These train drivers are already well paid, but they're being run by that militant RMT union, run by that terrible man, Mick Lynch. Rishi Sunak needs to pick a fight before the next general election to show who's in charge. He can start by taking on the RMT and saying, enough's enough, no more strikes on the trains. And you know what? The voters would love it and they would support it because these trains are already the 3rd most expensive in Europe. They're often late, they're normally dirty, and most of them, half of them, are foreign owned. So all those taxes we're pumping in, I'll just remind you the figure again, £42 billion since the pandemic. A lot of that money ends up in the pockets of overpaid executives abroad because 14 of our rail companies are now owned by foreign states, including Canada, Hong Kong, Italy. Italy, what do they know about trains? Spain and Germany. The list goes on. So come on, Prime Minister, let's see some real muscle. Ban the strikes. What do you think? Maybe you are a rail worker, maybe you are a train driver. Let's hear from you, because I think you've got it coming. What do you think? Let me know your reaction.